Well, hi there, folks. Welcome to the program. This, of course, is Stinchfield, the podcast. Great to be with you. How about Elon Musk? Elon Musk not happy with President Trump's tariffs. Now, did Elon play a role in getting President Trump to put this 90-day pause on countries that were willing to negotiate with the United States on tariffs? Maybe. Did my buddy Stephen Morey wrote an article, an op-ed for the Wall Street Journal. Him and Art Laff are great confidants and advisors to President Trump, telling President Trump to put a pause on this. Maybe it was Milton Friedman. Well, Elon using the old clips of Milton Friedman, maybe to get a point across, not just to all of you, but maybe to get a point across to President Trump. And then, of course, there's the feud between Peter Navarro, a good friend of mine, and Elon Musk, who I don't know. I don't like to see those feuds between people inside the administration. But as Caroline Levitt said, boys will be boys. What I want to do today, though, because I started to go back and look at old clips of Milton Friedman. This guy is brilliant. Everything he said from decades ago holds true today. We need to use it as a lesson and as a roadmap for how to deal with the economy today. Members of Congress need to watch this podcast. So I hope I don't bore you. That's never, ever, ever my goal in a podcast. In fact, it's to inform you and entertain you. I find the clips of Milton Friedman wildly entertaining, eye-opening, and informative. We shall see if you do too. Okay? So we'll get the show started here in just a moment. I want to tell you, though, about my friends over at get20now.com. Stock market's off again this morning. So here's what you can do. You want to lock in to up to 20% annualized interest on your investment? Just go to get20now.com, fill out the form, and they'll get back in touch with you. It's about Bitcoin mining. It's about making an investment with them. They pay you 20% annualized interest, and you get that interest payment monthly, okay? So this is cash flow money coming back into your pocket. It's a fabulous deal. I love it. I've invested with them a sizable amount of money. Many of my friends have now. Many of Stinchfield's Army members have as well. Get20now.com. I don't like the wild swings of Bitcoin, but this is about mining Bitcoin. They sell it on the open market the next day. They're able to pay you that 20% annualized interest paid monthly, direct deposited into your account. I'm not liking the swings I'm seeing in the stock market either. So anytime I can lock in at 20% on my money, I'm going to take that deal all day long. That's what Get20now.com is about. Get20now.com. Pay them a visit and call them. And when they call you back, either answer the phone or call them right back because this deal is too good to pass up. Get20now.com. All right. Let's get the show started, folks.
Uncensored and unapologetic. This is Stinchfield. Here's your host, Grant Stinchfield.
All right, so Elon Musk tweets out a video of Milton Friedman. Now, for those of you who don't know Milton Friedman, he is a hero of mine. Milton Friedman is one of the great free market thinkers of our time. He is a free marketeer that sometimes you listen to what he says, and it's so basic. You say, why didn't I think of that? At least this is what happens to me. I'm such a dork. These are the clips that I listen to at night when I can't sleep, okay? So I know many of you are watching other things when you can't sleep. Me, I'm watching Milton Friedman. This is the video that Elon Musk tweeted out, X'd out, whatever you call it now, made the social media post on the platform X. Take a listen.
This lead pencil. There's not a single person in the world who could make this pencil. Remarkable statement? Not at all. The wood from which it's made, for all I know, comes from a tree that was cut down in the state of Washington. To cut down that tree, it took a saw. To make the saw, it took steel. To make the steel, it took iron ore. This black center, we call it lead, but it's really graphite, compressed graphite. I'm not sure where it comes from, but I think it comes from some mines in South America. This red top up here, the eraser, bit of rubber, probably comes from Malaya, where the rubber tree isn't even native. It was imported from South America by some businessmen with the help of the British government. This brass ferrule, I haven't the slightest idea where it came from, or the yellow paint, or the paint that made the black lines, or the...
So what do you think, and we'll play the rest of it, what do you think the message Elon Musk is sending when he's playing a clip like that of Milton Friedman going through the pencil of where everything comes from? Literally, what? There's more than a dozen parts, maybe more, to a very simple pencil. I think Elon Musk is quietly telling President Trump, hey, listen, America still needs to import goods into this country. I think President Trump agrees with him. What President Trump is saying, yes, we can import goods into the country, but we're going to do it under the same rules that they have us play by when we export things into their country. That is not out of line. In a perfect world, and President Trump has reiterated this, there would be no tariffs on anybody. We send goods to one country, they send goods here, no tariffs whatsoever. Zero, zero. I'm all for that. That is the ultimate free market. Once you start adding tariffs into the mix, you're now having government manipulate the markets, manipulate the price of goods, whether it's us doing it or whether it's another country doing it. So yes, conservatives are correct that tariffs are not a free market principle. But you can't have free trade without fair trade. And we're not going to take things for free just when somebody else is charging us, forget about 10%, 80, 90, 100% tariffs on American goods. So I think Elon is still pushing the point, though, that be careful because we get a lot of things from overseas.
Glue that holds it together. Literally thousands of people cooperated to make this pencil. People who don't speak the same language, who practice different religions, who might hate one another if they ever met. When you go down to the store and buy this pencil, you are in effect trading a few minutes of your time for a few seconds of the time of all those thousands of people. What brought them together and induced them to cooperate to make this pencil? There was no commissar sending out orders from some central office. It was a magic of the price system, the impersonal operation of prices that brought them together and got them to cooperate to make this pencil so that you could have it for a trifling sum. That is why the operation of the free market is so essential, not only to promote productive efficiency, but even more to foster harmony and peace among the peoples of the world.
So he's basically talking about why he wants no tariffs. People coming together of all walks of religion, races, creeds to make a pencil. And many of them don't even know what they're working on. The people that made the stain or gloss for the pencil, people that made did they even know it was going to go to a pencil? The people making the brass for the ferret on top, did they even know that would ultimately be used for a pencil? But all these people coming together, it is very important to know that without the free markets, that would not happen. So what happened was you had Peter Navarro come out against Elon Musk and basically say all Elon Musk does is all Elon Musk does, according to Peter Navarro, is assemble his cars. He doesn't really manufacture them. He gets the parts from everywhere else. He assembles them, and therefore they're not really American made. I think it was a slam at Elon Musk that he didn't deserve. I've seen statistics that show that Elon's Teslas are the most American-made car of any car on the road today, but this was Peter Navarro.
Challenge your assumption that it takes years. Okay, it's not going to take years. We do this.
And here he is talking about how quickly we can ramp up production and manufacturing in the United States.
It's in Trump time. That means as quickly as possible. During the first term, I was the defense policy coordinator. I was the guy who was helping the president try to get things like ventilators and N95 masks to the people as quickly as possible. Honeywell comes to me and says, we got to get 2 factories done. And it's going to take maybe 6 to 8 months or more. We got them done in 2 months. And then General Motors, ventilators, 14 days 14 days we were producing ventilators in the Midwest right now, around the Michigan area, Indiana, all the places where autos and auto parts are made. There's very low capacity utilization of our auto factories. There's auto parts factories, which all you have to do is go on and take the cobwebs and dust away, and you can start those up again. This is going to move very, very fast. With respect to the inflation issue and whether consumers are going to pay for this, we have the experience of the first term. What happens is the exporters to us eat most of any tariff. Why do they do that? They have to do that, Lindsay. I mean, think about it. They're export dependent. They have nowhere to go other than us for selling goods, and so they eat it. That's what happened, particularly with China in the first term. You got to remember, Lindsay, I don't know if you're around for the first term. You probably had people on your show. They said all the same thing, inflation, inflation, inflation. It didn't happen. It just didn't happen. So you have to take that with a grain of salt and understand the underlying economics. The other thing that happens is currency adjustments. Our currency is going to get stronger. That's what happens when the trade deficit goes down. What does that mean? That means that we have more purchasing power to buy those imports. So that happens, and then supply chains adjust, and then investment comes here.
So it's important the investment does come here. Now, after these comments, Elon Musk says Peter Navarro is dumb as a sack of bricks. Now, I don't think that is fair assessment of Peter Navarro at all, and I don't think that was very nice, Elon Musk. But I want to play some more clips of Milton Friedman. This is him, and it's one of my, let me do this. I believe this is him on the minimum wage.
Is over twice as high as the overall unemployment rate. It's no accident that that was not always the case until the 1950s, when the minimum wage rate was raised very drastically, very quickly. Teenage unemployment was higher than ordinary unemployment because, of course, the teenagers are the ones who are just coming into the labor market. They're searching and finding jobs, and it's understandable that on the average they would have be unemployed more. But it was nothing like the extraordinary level it has now reached. It's close to 20%. Why? Because the minimum wage law is most properly described as a law saying employers must discriminate against people who have low skills.
You hear what he just said? We talk a lot about the minimum wage on this program. The result of the minimum wage, of course, is this. This is Pollo Loco in California, $20 minimum wage for fast food workers. Now they have kiosks taking your order. There's nobody working there. The minimum wage is the most discriminatory regulation ever enacted. Okay? That from Milton Friedman. Why would we say that? This is what I mean by Democrat policies. They think they're helping, but they're hurting, and they're discriminating, and they're holding people down. And really, they're making life worse for American citizens when even if you give them the benefit of the doubt that they want to make life better, they are not.
That's what the law says. The law says here's a man who has a skill which would justify a wage rate of $1.50, $2 an hour. You may not employ him. It's illegal because you have to. If you employ him, you have to pay him $2.50. Well, what's the result? To employ him at $2.50 is to engage in charity. Now, there's nothing wrong with charity, but most employers are not in a position where they can engage in that kind of charity.
So I use this example. There was a homeless guy when I owned my oil change business in Irving, Texas. So a homeless guy would come around every morning. He'd get a cup of coffee. You don't want to have my auto care business. You could get coffee for customers in the lobby. And I let this homeless guy come in and have a cup of coffee in the morning. Fine. He was a nice guy. Now, I could have put him to work. When a car comes into my business, we would check the air in the tires. If it needed new air, we would fill it up. We would wash the outside of the windows, all the windows, we would wash them. And then we would vacuum the inside of the car. Okay? It's a nice service when you get your oil change. Now, I would have had him do those things, but it doesn't take any great skill to do those things. So at the time when I hired him, I would have given him $5 an hour probably. That's what I needed. I didn't need to hire him. It would have made my other guys, their jobs a little bit easier to have somebody who was just doing windows and tires, but I didn't need him. But for $5 an hour, it would have been worth it to take up the slack from somebody else. More than that, it wouldn't have been worth it for me. And I'm not sure he was worth more than $5 an hour. I know that sounds harsh to say, right? That somebody is not worth $5 an hour. But here you have a homeless guy. He clearly isn't very responsible because he's now homeless. And you got to go through a lot to get to the point of being homeless. And he doesn't have any real skills other than the fact that he could wash windows and vacuum a car. The government told me you cannot hire him for $5 an hour. I'm sure that guy would have been happy to work for $5 an hour. Now, he may have only wanted to work 2 or 3 hours a day because he'd want to get back on the street and back to boozing because that's what he was doing. But for $5 an hour, I would have done it. Government said, no, you can't hire him. That's what Milton Friedman is talking about when they say government makes us discriminate against people.
Thus, the consequences of minimum wage rates have been almost wholly bad, to increase unemployment and to increase poverty. Moreover, the effects have been concentrated on the groups that the do-gooders would most like to help. The people who have been hurt most by minimum wage laws are the blacks. I have often said that the most anti-Negro law on the books of this land is the minimum wage rate. And so I think the real answer to your question is that you must not judge a bottle solely by its label. You have to look at what's inside and see what the law or the measure produces.
If one looked at the label, though, and perhaps one of those government regulations that you would look askance at is that we look at labels. If one looked at the label and identified the objective of minimum wages, are there no positive, legitimate objectives achieved by minimum wage?
None whatsoever. In my opinion, there is absolutely no positive objective achieved by minimum wages. Its real purpose is to reduce competition for the trade unions and make it easier for them to maintain the wages of their privileged members higher than the others.
All right, remember, is there any benefit to minimum wage laws? Specifically for workers. Again, I'm going to show you this picture. Does this look like there's a benefit to workers once minimum wage laws were raised to $20 an hour in California? Employers aren't stupid, man. Government can engage in all of these kinds of regulations, and employers are going to really try to do the best they can do to figure out how to make money, because that's the goal of a business, is to make money. I relate this back to when Barack Obama and his team came up with this regulation that anybody making $52,000 a year or less had to be paid overtime. Okay? So if you were on salary making $52,000 or less, you had to be paid overtime. My manager at my oil change business, he was on salary at $50,000 a year. Okay? Well, he comes to me and he says, hey, you see this new law? You got to pay me overtime. I said, I can't afford to pay you overtime. So here's what's going to have to happen. You're not going to be salary anymore. You're going to be hourly. And I'm going to figure out what your hourly rate would be, paying you for 50 hours a week, 40 hours straight time, 10 hours of overtime, and I'm going to equal that to what you make now. Now, I'm also going to make you clock in. So when you tell me, hey, boss, there's nobody here, I'm going to clock out and go home early, so-and-so is going to close for me. Or when you tell me you have a doctor's appointment and you have to run out and go do something, or you got to go pick up your kid, I'm going to have you clock in and out. I'm not going to just pay you. What do you think his response was? He now realized he was going to lose. And Barack Obama's response should have been, how dumb were we to think that we were going to mandate what employees pay people in a fair market? And the reason I say a fair market's important, because if this gentleman didn't want to work for $50,000 a year in the oil industry, oil change industry, I could have found somebody else to do it at the time. Now, good employees are always hard to find. Don't get me wrong. But you could find someone else to do it. So that's what the free markets are about. And government tries to intervene, and it never, ever works out. This was Phil Donahue. Remember the Donahue show? This was Phil Donahue asking Milton Friedman about minimum wage.
Because the government sets a minimum wage, what does McDonald's do?
McDonald's? It can't hire as many teenagers. It improves its capital equipment to serve. It does less business because it has to charge higher hamburger prices. In the absence of a minimum wage, McDonald's would be able to offer a larger number of jobs to a larger number of youngsters, and they would be able to acquire some skills. And not only McDonald's.
So we hire more people.
You hear what they're saying? And that's not to be underestimated, is the ability to acquire skills. There's a give and take here. It's a starting job. You're acquiring skills, and I will say this about the minimum wage. I wouldn't want anybody working for me on minimum wage in the end, right? Because the reality is, if you're better than minimum wage, I'm going to pay you better than minimum wage because a good employee is invaluable. So if you hustle, if you think on your feet, if you treat my business like it was yours, ultimately, you're going to have a very good position with me, and I'm going to do everything I can to keep you around because you're going to make me money with an attitude like that. You don't need to worry about minimum wage if you're a good employee. All right, we'll get back to this in just a second. But before we do, I want to tell you about my friends over at Patriot Mobile. You know I love my Patriot Mobile phone, folks. I'm going to ask you, have you switched yet? If you haven't switched, every time you make a phone call, you are helping to fund the woke agenda. The big three cell phone companies all donate to wild, wacky leftist causes. They engage in wild, wacky leftist policies inside their own businesses. Not Patriot Mobile. It's America's only Christian conservative wireless provider that allows for so many of my conservative colleagues to broadcast to you to get the word out, not to mention all the conservative nonprofits helping fight for free speech, helping for conservative school boards across the country. This is what Patriot Mobile does, and I urge you to move your service to them. And here's the great thing. You can pick between the big three networks. Your cell phone service will be on one of those networks. That's why they can offer you a performance guarantee like none other, because you can switch if one network doesn't work well for you. 100% U.S.-based customer service. You can't beat that. Use the promo code GRANT. You get free activation, up to $500 to switch a line to get out of your contract. That's going to help you. And again, that first month is great. PatriotMobile.com/Grant. Use the promo code GRANT or call them at 972-PATRIOT, 972-PATRIOT, and tell them Grant Stinchfield sent you. All right. I'm going to continue with some more of Milton Friedman because I really am fascinated by the guy. Take a look.
In my opinion, a society that aims for equality before liberty will end up with neither equality nor liberty.
Whoa, hold on a second. A society that aims for equality before liberty will end up with neither. Now, I got to hear this. Now, notice there's a phrase he doesn't use because it's only been used recently, and that is equity. I don't even know if Milton Friedman envisioned America going down this road of equity, which is equal outcomes for everyone, not equal opportunity for everyone, like equality. So let's hear his thoughts on this, equality versus liberty, and which comes first.
And a society that aims first for liberty will not end up with equality, but it will end up with a closer approach to equality than any other kind of system that has ever been developed. Now, that conclusion is based both on evidence from history, across history, and also, I believe, on reasoning which, if you try to follow through the implications of aiming first at equality, will become clear to you. You can only aim at equality by giving some people the right to take things from others. And what ultimately happens when you aim at equality is that A and B decide what C shall do for D. Except that they take a little bit of a commission off on the way.
So they take a commission off along the way, he says. So that's a fascinating comment that you've got to strive for liberty, the ability to make your own decisions, individuality, free from government intrusion. If everybody has liberty, then don't we get really close to equality? I think he's right on that. I really do. Milton Friedman as an older, well, here, I'll wait to play Milton Friedman as an older gentleman. Here's more from Milton.
If you look at the real problems of poverty and denial of freedom to people in this country, Almost every single one of them is a result of government action. We have constructed a governmental welfare scheme which has been a machine for producing poor people. We have induced people to come under control of welfare. I'm not blaming the people, don't misunderstand me. It's our fault for constructing so perverse and so ill-shaped a monster as the whole set of welfare programs we have, under which we encourage people, families to break up. We encourage people to move from one part of the country and come to another.
You see what he's saying? This is exactly what we're experiencing now. Why do you think homeless people will keep using the homeless issue? Why do you think homeless people go to California? Why do you think illegal aliens go to California and New York and other red states like Massachusetts? Excuse me, blue states like Massachusetts, New York, California. They go there because they're incentivized to go there. They're given handouts. They're given free hotel rooms. They're given cell phones. They're given debit cards. So you incentivize this behavior to be on the government take. How do you ever expect anyone to get off of it? Homeless people go to California because they know ultimately they'll be tolerated and taken care of if they want it. Why wouldn't you go to Southern California? You may just get a tiny home out of it if they can build them. They've only got about 4 built. They're supposed to build hundreds of them. That was years ago. So this is what I mean by blue states incentivizing bad behavior.
Under which we have, in effect, made many people poor. And yet, when all this is said and done, have I ever been where?
Welfare or poor.
Of course, more so than most of the people in this room. How many of you have worked a 12-hour day and gotten paid 78 cents? But you know, that's all irrelevant. Is there one of you who is going to say that you don't want a doctor to treat you for cancer unless he himself has had cancer?
You see why I love this guy? I mean, someone says you're not poor. You don't know what it's like. You don't know what it's like to be homeless. Well, you don't know what it's like to have cancer. Doc, you didn't have cancer, so don't treat me. I mean, honestly, when I tell you Milton Friedman comes up with lines that are so basic, so drives to the heart of the problem, and the answers are so simple that he gives, it's amazing to me that more people don't see it for what it is. He's giving the blueprint of America. All Milton Friedman is doing right now is reiterating in a very simple way how the founding fathers envisioned this country.
But when all is said and done, while there are people in this country who are worse off than other people, by and large, even the poorest people in this country are relatively well off compared to the conditions in many other countries in the world. What we take as our standard of poverty is above the average income of all of the people in the Soviet Union. Now, that doesn't mean we should be satisfied with it. We are a wealthier country and we've been more productive. And we should set higher standards by ourselves. But by the same token, we ought to have a sense of proportion. And we ought to recognize both the source and the problem.
So the problem is the government. It's not the people, it's the government. Now, he talks about poverty in America. This is true. You know, I was a mainstream television reporter. I used to work the streets, covered crimes. I was in the hood every day. I was the guy standing on a bridge telling you to drive slow in a snowstorm. Yes, I was that guy. Now, in the hood, I would go interview people after crimes, and I would walk into a housing project, and I'd go into people's apartments in these housing projects, whether it was in the Bronx in New York City or whether it was in Pleasant Grove in Dallas, Texas. It was always the same. This horribly poor area riddled with crime. I'd walk in and there's a flat screen TV on the wall. I'd walk in and the kids are wearing Air Jordan sneakers. Sometimes I might look around the corner and in one of the bedrooms, there'd be more kids playing video games on an Xbox or PlayStation. And I thought, this is poverty in America. Now, would I want to live in this place under these conditions? No, I would not. But it is far better than when I went to Nicaragua and had to build homes for people so they could sleep off of the dirt floor and get them up off the ground. Far better situation here in America. Milton Friedman's point on me is most certainly well taken. Here's more Milton Friedman.
See, the role of the government, if you look at it from a purely economic point of view, the role of the government is to protect the drug cartel. That's literally true.
Is it doing a good job with it?
Excellent.
Wait a second. So here, when I first heard this, I'm like thinking, wait, he's not saying the role of the government should be to protect the drug cartel. No, he's talking about marijuana and why it should actually be legalized. From a free market perspective, he's saying, look, people can make choices for themselves. But even more than that, what happens is when you outlaw marijuana, he's now given them a monopoly that they can exploit. That government's outlaw of marijuana actually invigorates the cartels. Listen to this. Now, if we took this mentality, and I'm not saying we should legalize marijuana in America. I don't know. I'm open to it. I really am. But listen to his thoughts, and it makes me more open to it.
What do I mean by that? In an ordinary free market business, let's take potatoes, beef, anything you want. There are thousands of importers and exporters. Anybody can go into the business. But it's very hard for a small person to go into the drug importing business because our interdiction efforts essentially make it enormously costly. So the only people who can survive in that business are these large meddling cartel kind of people who have enough money so they can have fleets of airplanes, so they can have sophisticated methods, so on. So in effect, in addition to which, by keeping goods out, by arresting, let's say, local marijuana growers, the government keeps the price of these products high. So what more could a monopolist want? He's got a government who makes it very hard for all his competitors and who keeps the price of his product high. It's absolutely heaven.
Well, it certainly was under Joe Biden because they were allowed to operate. Now, President Trump probably hears that message and says, okay, well, then how do I combat that if I want to keep drugs still illegal in the United States? You go after the cartels directly. Now you take the war to the cartels. If you shut them down, you label them a terrorist organization and you shut them down. Now they have no ability to operate and it wipes this out. But again, I think his message is the drug dealers prosper when this happens. Now, this didn't happen in California, though. California legalized marijuana. And what happened? The price of marijuana went up. Why? Because government got too involved in the legalization of marijuana. So in California, government now taxes the sale of marijuana, forces the price of marijuana up, makes it very expensive to get a license to be a dispensary, forces the price of marijuana up. And the drug dealer saw that and says, you know what? They can legalize marijuana all we want. We can provide it to you a lot cheaper, and you don't have to go to the rigmarole of getting a marijuana card or anything like that. We'll just sell it to you. Come straight to your house and drop it off if you want. And so the illegal drug trade on marijuana is still booming in California because government got too in control. I'll play some more, Friedman.
In any event, I'm not in favor of fairness.
Hold on, I can't hear it. Let me see if I can.
And freedom is not fairness. Fairness means somebody has to decide what's fair.
All right, this is interesting. He says, freedom is not fairness. Now, how often do we talk about fairness? Fairness is the old word for equity. It's fair. Everybody gets the same, okay? I don't like that. If I want to go out and take more of the pie, then I should be allowed to go out and take more of the pie. I'm going to work harder for it. I'm going to be smarter to get it. And I'm going to fight like hell to take my piece of the pie. Fair would say, oh, we'll split it all up and everybody gets equal fair. That is Soviet Union style thinking. Communist China style thinking.
Fairness. In any event, I'm not in favor of fairness. I'm in favor of freedom. And freedom is not fairness. Fairness means somebody has to decide what's fair. And that means the FCC people have to decide what's fair. I don't want the FCC people to decide for me.
It's always in the decider. How long we've been talking about this? It's always the decider when it comes to free speech on Facebook. Who's deciding what's true, what's not true? Who decides what's fair, what's not fair? The government always takes that role. It's the last role I want the government to have. Do you see what I mean when I play these clips for you? I know it's not going to be my most watched podcast, but it may just be my most important.
I should listen to or hear. And you wouldn't be able, if the public at large didn't agree with your choices, you'd be out of business.
Yeah, I would.
So you know, it's a funny thing. People think that it's the appearance of power versus the reality of power. It looks like as if you have a lot of power over what you put on your show, but you don't.
Really?
Because if you didn't appeal to the public, if these people didn't like you, do a marvelous job. I'm not questioning that. But you do a marvelous job because you have found an audience for your product.
So in other words, my power comes from the people, is your point.
Absolutely.
And if I just put on all of my favorites, then the public will clearly see that Donahue was sold out and they're right.
Look, I've been reading your book. It's a good book, and I recommend it to you just as he recommended mine. But in that book, you point out the difficulties you had getting into New York.
Yeah.
Suppose you had to have government permission to go into New York. Do you think you would have had it any easier? Do you think you could have had as much independence as you've had?
Mm-hmm. And under the Friedman laissez-faire broadcasting system, there would have been more opportunities for this from Dayton, Ohio to get into New York.
Absolutely. There would have been more stations. There would have been, instead of 3 big networks, you would have had a much broader group of stations. You would have been able to break in much sooner. I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it would have happened.
So this is probably before cable even came around. So he was talking about the FCC. They get to decide. They get to give out licenses. The FCC offers an on-air license to a radio station or a TV station. Cable broke that apart, man. Remember, it used to be ABC, NBC, CBS, PBS. That was it, right? Maybe a local station. You had a local station in town that was independent. But for the most part, you had 5 or 6 stations. Cable news comes on the scene. Government's not involved now. Now a cable provider could go out and say, hey, if you're a network, we'll give you a home. Come on. And that's what they did. And now cable is useless because we have streaming. I'm streaming to you right now. I basically own Stinchfield's own network. I mean, I use Rumble as a platform, but I could choose someplace else. My question would be, how do I get the message to you? That's where advertising would come in. I've got to go find you. There's a bigger audience on Rumble than there is if I just aired this on my website, right? I have the potential for more eyeballs. So Rumble makes money off of me here, and that's fine. This is literally the free market at work. I put a product on. Rumble will run a commercial. They'll take some of that money. I'll take some of that money. I've just created Stinchfield, the TV network. Now, I only come to you on Rumble an hour a day, but it's my own network for an hour a day. And I'm basically just using Rumble as the physical pathway to get my message to you. And I pay them for that. So free markets. You didn't have that when government was involved in handing out FCC licenses, did you? All right. Folks, you know my friends over at Energized Health? Love these guys. EnergizedHealth.com/Grant. It's about intercellular hydration. I feel like I'm in some of the best shape of my life. The reason being is because I'm hydrated at a cellular level. You need to learn about this. If your organs look like a raisin, okay, it means they're shriveled up and they're dehydrated. You want your organs filled up like grapes. Raisins are grapes, right? They're just dehydrated grapes. You want your organs like a grape. But how do you get cellular hydration? All right. If I pour water onto the leaves of a tree, that tree is not necessarily going to get hydrated. I've got to get that water down into the root system. So what the Energized Health system does is figured out a way to get your hydration into your cells, and everything changes. I lost 15 pounds in 2 weeks. I've lost body fat. I've gained muscle mass. My testosterone levels went up. My cholesterol levels went down. This system is fabulous. EnergizedHealth.com/Grant. I urge you to go there. EnergizedHealth.com/Grant. Pay them a visit, and I promise you, you are not going to regret it. All right. All right. As we keep going here, I want to play a clip for you about what happened yesterday after President Trump announced his tariffs were going into action. I just have to find it here, and I apologize for this. Okay. President Trump announces his tariffs are going to be cut for a 90-day pause on countries that are friendly with us. This was great. Stock market booms. Stock market soars. President Trump comes out, says things like this.
Started the morning saying be cool. And just a few hours later, there was a pause put in on the tariffs. Can you walk us through what you were thinking about why you decided to put a 90-day pause?
Well, I thought that people were jumping a little bit out of line. They were getting yippy, you know. They were getting a little bit yippy, a little bit afraid, unlike these champions, because we have a big job to do. No other president would have done what I did. No other president. I know the presidents. They wouldn't have done it. And it had to be done. What was happening to us on trade, not only with, you know, if you look at it, not only with China, but China was by far the biggest abuser in history, and others also, but somebody had to do it. They had to stop because it was not sustainable. Last year, China made $1 trillion off trade with the United States. That's not right.
So somebody had to do it. President Trump does. So he puts a pause on it. Stock market soars. But he didn't put a pause on China. He increased the tariffs on China to 124% now. But I want you to understand how dumb these Democrats are. They're ding-dongs. I mean, what I'm going to play you as a clip, as my buddy Charlie Kirk said, tell me you didn't read The Art of the Deal without telling me you didn't read The Art of the Deal. This is it. This is Congressman Hosford, a Democrat, questioning our trade representative under President Trump. The tariff pause has just come down, and he flips out about it. I don't know why he flipped out about it, but he flipped out about it.
Are you aware that the tariffs have been paused?
I am, yes.
When were you made aware of that?
Well, I understood the decision was made a few minutes ago.
Sitting here.
Under discussion.
Sitting here, under discussion. So did you know that this was under discussion, and why did you not include that as part of your opening remarks?
So typically what I don't do is divulge the contents of my discussions with
What are the
President
details of the pause?
Well, my understanding is that because so many countries have decided not to retaliate, we're going to have about 90 days.
No, excuse me? China increased their tariffs on the United States. Trump blinked.
What's the blink, sir?
What do you know about this pause? What are the details of it?
Well,
See, this is what a dumbass he is. President Trump didn't blink. He raised the tariffs on China, and he paused for everybody else, you big dope. This guy's so kind here, this trade representative under President Trump. I would have blasted Hosford. Could you imagine me in this hearing? Excuse me, are you an idiot, sir? Why don't you get your facts straight before you question me? You're wasting my time here.
Details, as I understand it, is that China continues to retaliate. Other countries didn't retaliate. The president 2 or 3 days ago said we wanted to negotiate with those countries that asked for meetings. That's what we're doing.
What are the details? How long is the pause? How many days? How many weeks?
I understand it's 90 days. I haven't spoken to the president since I've been.
So the trade representative hasn't spoken to the president of the United States about a global reordering of trade.
Yes, I have. I've just been in the hearing with you, sir.
But yet he announced it on a tweet. WTF? Who's in charge?
The president of the United States is in charge.
And what do you know about those details?
Well, as I mentioned,
it looks like your boss just pulled the rug out from under you. Is this market manipulation?
No.
Why not? If it was a plan, if it was always the plan, how is this not market manipulation?
It's not market manipulation, sir.
Well, then what is it? Because it sure is not a strategy.
We're trying to reset the global trade system.
These people are so dumb. This is the next thing, by the way. They're now accusing President Trump of manipulating the market so his team could profit off the stock market soaring yesterday. Well, All of America profited off of this. President Trump literally acknowledged people were getting yippy. They were getting scared. So he pauses only with the countries that would agree to negotiate. They pause. That's a good thing. This guy's so angry. We had Democrats screaming and yelling. All of a sudden, Democrats become free marketeers that don't want tariffs just because President Trump instituted them. When before, they were the ones that were screaming and yelling for them. Now, again, this is Schiff making those same allegations, by the way.
How concerned are you with this market fluctuation? And are you concerned that there could be members of the White House that are benefiting from it?
Absolutely. I'm writing to the White House to demand who knew in advance that the president was going to once again flip-flop on tariffs. And are people cashing in? There is just all too much opportunity for people in the White House and the administration to be insider trading, and you can't put it past them for a minute. So
this guy's a despicable freaking human being. Pencil neck chef watermelon head, as the president calls him. He's going to, first off, you have no investigative power. You can send all the letters you want to the White House. If I'm President Trump, I use it as toilet paper.
We're going to try to find out.
There's a good chance they'll just ignore you, though, right? Should there be some other independent investigation into this?
Well, I think Congress should do an investigation into this, but we're going to demand answers from the administration. I think you're right. They're likely to stonewall, particularly if they've been engaged in corrupt insider trading.
Stonewall, you're a loser. I'm not playing you anymore. Stonewall, why would we give you anything? You leak classified information to the media. You make up the Russian collusion hoax. You give the media fake news stories. You literally make up facts as you go, claiming they're real. That's lying to the American people. And you think we're going to give you information about anything? Screw you, Adam Schiff. What does the president think about this guy?
And that's with all of the difficulties and all of the fake investigations and the Adam Shifty Schiffs. Can you believe this guy? He's got the smallest neck I've ever seen. And the biggest head. We call him watermelon head. I'd say, how could that big fat face stand on a neck that looked like this finger? How can it? It was the weirdest thing. It's a mystery. Nobody can understand it. But he's one of the most dishonest human beings I've ever seen. And, you know, how we can allow people like that to run in office is a shame, but we did. He was in charge of the witch hunt, you know. He was in charge of the fake witch hunt with Russia. It was a made-up story. Made up. Think of it. They make up a story. They know it's made up. It's gone on for a year and a half, 2 years. Russia. I knew nothing about it. The only thing I knew was that I taxed the pipeline that I told you about, that I put all sorts of sanctions and everything else. They never had a problem like they had with me. But it was Russia, constant, as a method of, what they did is that was the complaint about why she lost an election.
All right, so again, pencil neck Schiff, watermelon head, whatever you want to call him, he deserves literally everything he gets. What an a-hole. And then, you know, you talk about these Democrats and their taxes, and tariffs. I want you to listen to a little then and now of Chuck Schumer screaming and yelling about tariffs. Now we can go back a few years where he was all for them. But this is just about Donald Trump. They despise Donald Trump so much. Anything he does, even if, as Trump says, cured cancer, they would be against him.
Donald Trump is now in retreat because Democrats in the Senate and the House and the American people have said, stop playing games with these tariffs. You think it's a game. You think it's like red light, green light. It's not. It's chaos.
Wait, even if President Trump paused the tariffs because the Democrats told him to do it, why wouldn't you be happy that he did it? You asking him to do it, he did it, but they still can't be happy about that. See, Trump cannot win with these assholes.
And the damage you have done already, despite today's announcement, is permanent and real and deep. You're throwing our whole economy out of kilter. You're telling business people and consumers to not spend because they don't know what the heck is coming out next. What you're doing, Donald Trump, is hurting the American people as you play games. Whatever pops into your head the next hour, the next day, the next week is what you say we're doing with tariffs. And they constantly contradict each other, make no sense, harm the American economy, and worst of all, American families.
It says to the Chinese, enough already. It says to the Chinese that their unfair trade policies have got to end. It says to the Chinese, this is a shot across your bow. Reform, because if you don't, there are going to be dramatic consequences throughout the world, in our country, and in your country as well.
You see the hypocrisy? Again, it's Trump derangement syndrome. We need more conservatives in Washington, D.C., that's for sure. You know, my buddy, and he really is my buddy, Attorney General of Texas, Ken Paxton, he's a great guy, was prolific trying to stop the Biden agenda. Well, I interviewed him on the Real America's Voice show last night. I want to play a clip. I want to play that interview for you because it's worth watching. He's running against John Cornyn for the United States Senate in a Republican primary. Cornyn is a disaster. We'll get into that in a moment. But before we do, don't forget about my friends over at the Wellness Company. TWC.health/grant. Use the promo code GRANT for 10% off. These prescription medication kits are the gold standard when it comes to having prescription medications in your house. All of these are made out directly to me. TWC, the Wellness Company, TWC.health/grant will send it right to your door. You have it now in case of emergency. Ivermectin in here, amoxicillin, a whole slew of antivirals, antibiotics, antibacterial stuff, all in here. This is what you need to keep your family safe. So again, TWC.health/grant. I urge you to make sure you get one of these kits. You don't want to have it and not need it. Excuse me. You'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. I set my printer off here when I set this thing down. It shocked me. Sorry about that. All right, TWC.health/grant. Use the promo code GRANT for 10% off. All right, my interview with Ken Paxton from last night on the Real America's Voice show. Let me play that for you. Here we go. Welcome back, everyone. One of the great points of this show, for me anyway, is that it's an opinion show. So I give you my opinion. You know I do it. Well, I have never been a fan of John Cornyn, my senator from Texas, the senior senator here. I think he's a RINO. I think he's a deep stater. And quite honestly, I think he's been in office too long, and I think he's a grifter, grifting the American taxpayer. But I've never liked him more than today. What this man did today was so despicable and so low. I will fight so hard to make sure that this man loses. And you don't hear a lot of conservative talk show hosts talk about candidates in Republican primaries like that. But I mean it. After this weasel candidate talking about Attorney General Ken Paxton, who's a man who has fought harder against the Biden administration than any attorney general in this country, okay? This is what he has to say about Attorney General when the Attorney General says, you know what? We're going to run against you in a Republican primary. It's his right to do it. It's politics. Put your big boy pants on, Cornyn. Listen to this.
Mr. Paxton has a checkered background. He is a con man and a fraud. And I think the people of Texas know that.
No, sir. First off, Attorney General Paxton has been cleared of anything against him. I'm not even going to bring it up. But the real con man is Cornyn. He votes for gun control in Texas, for crying out loud, as our senator. He told you President Trump couldn't win. Guess who's in the Oval Office today? President Trump. He even criticized President Trump of his handling of the classified documents. This man has to go. And it is my great pleasure to bring in now Republican Attorney General for the great state of Texas, and now Senate candidate in Texas, my friend Ken Paxton. General, it's great to have you on the program.
Hey, it's a good day. Thanks for having me back, Grant.
Well, it is a great day. Before I get into Cornyn, because this is more important, why are you running? What do you bring to the people of Texas, the people of America, that would make you better than anybody else in the United States Senate?
Look, I think I've proven this. I'm a proven conservative, but I want the opportunity to help Donald Trump deliver on his promises to the American people. He's moving fast on cutting spending. He's moving fast on tax increases. He's moving fast on fixing the border. He's moving fast on all kinds of important issues in this country. I've never seen anybody do more so fast. I'd love to be a part of doing that with him.
All right, let me ask you now about Senator Cornyn's comments today. There were more. He went further. I really don't really want to give him the pleasure of playing any of them, but, you know, you're running a Republican primary. It's not like you're running against Nancy Pelosi here. Where does he get off with these comments?
So I think his problem was, and this is going to be an ongoing problem for him. He has nothing to talk about as far as what he's done over the last 23 years. It's a long time to have nothing to talk about. And if he did talk about something, it would be some of the things you brought about. It was gun restrictions. His biggest bill ever was a gun restriction bill that Joe Biden was pleased with, that congratulated him, and Donald Trump was critical. So these are the types of things, whether it's his comments on the border wall, amnesty, his comments on Trump, these are the types of things he didn't want to talk about either. And so he's got to turn the campaign. He's got nothing going for him. He's down 25 points. He's an incumbent senator. The only thing he can talk about is me. And it's got to be personal because he's not going to be able to attack my record. It's unassailable as far as he's concerned.
Well, the Texas Republican Convention, he got booed when he went in there. Now, if you're a senator from Texas, I don't understand. You have free reign to basically do whatever conservative, freedom-loving thing you would want to do. You're going to have no ramifications for it. And yet you think that he's a senator from Maryland or something.
Yeah, so that was an interesting time for me because he had just criticized me. I was running against George P. Bush, or George P. was running against me. And he had come out a week before our runoff and said I was an embarrassment to Texas, obviously being prompted by Karl Rove and the Bushes. And I ended up winning by 38 points. A month later, we're at the state convention with 10 to 12,000 Republican delegates. And he happens to be speaking right before me. He goes up on stage with his wife for 10 straight minutes. He got booed. She walks off. He speaks for another 20 minutes. He gets booed the entire time. I'm not talking like slight booing. I'm talking about like loud boos. It was embarrassing. I let him walk off stage. I did not say a word to him. I walked on stage and got a standing ovation. I knew then that John Cornyn, that the people of Texas, the voters of Texas, got John Cornyn, and they didn't like him.
All right. So they don't. And I'm really in touch with grassroots people in Texas especially. Nobody likes John Cornyn. I think you're going to be welcomed in with open arms from the grassroots community in this state. Let me ask you this. I mentioned that you sued Joe Biden, his administration, I think more than any other attorney general. What did you learn from that experience that then you can then bring to the United States Senate?
Look, I mean, I learned that if you want a chance at winning, you got to go fight. And sometimes you got to be creative in that fight. And you got to be persistent in that fight. And if you continue that fight, you have a really good chance. If you do it smartly, you have a really good chance of being successful. We were successful like 78% of the time against the Biden administration when we came up with creative, good, well-founded lawsuits based on the Constitution and based on federal and state law. That same type of attitude applies when you're in the U.S. Senate. If you're consistently conservative, you're looking for creative ways to be effective, and you're persistent in doing that, I think you can bring that same mentality to the U.S. Senate, and they need a little more of that.
Yeah, they sure do. They need more real good conservative fighters up there, which you are one of them. I've known you personally for many years now, which brings me to another question. One of the keys to this is going to be President Trump's endorsement. I've mentioned you to President Trump before in the past. I know for a fact that he likes you. We can see all the video with you and him. He brings up your name all the time. John Cornyn is now lobbying for Trump's endorsement. You never know what Trump's going to do here. Have you talked to the president about your run, and how do you think this will shape out?
I've talked to some of his family members and others. I don't want to say in detail what I've said or haven't said, but look, I was there at Mar-a-Lago with one other elected official, Troy Nehls, when he announced for president. There were no other elected officials. Why was I there? back then there was a lot of questions about whether he could win, and Ron DeSantis was, had a lot of momentum. But I truly believe that, one, Trump was going to win. Two, that he was going to be successful and that he was the best candidate. I've stuck with him. I think the president's very loyal. And I do I'm encouraged. I think that in the end, the president's going to do the right thing. I would find it shocking that John Cornyn would be his guy, considering John Cornyn's criticism of him over the years, including both times when he ran for president. So, look, the president can do what he wants to do, but I have a lot of respect for him, and I know in the end he's going to do the right thing.
Well, I would think he would be well served to endorse you in this race. I think you got a real shot of winning. It's going to take a lot of money. I take it, look, you've run statewide in this state before. You know how to win races, clearly. But now you're going up against an incumbent senator. Money's an issue. I'll give you the last word here. What's the pitch to voters out there here, especially if they're in Texas, but really across the country?
Look, it's time for a change in Texas. We're not in New Hampshire. We're not in Vermont. We need a conservative in Texas, somebody like Ted Cruz. And we all know that John Cornyn is not Ted Cruz, and he's nothing like Ted Cruz. He's sold us out. He's not done what he should have done. He's had 23 years, going on 24, to accomplish good for Texas, and he can't point to anything other than turning it around and attacking me personally. And so it's just time for a change. And I think that change should be me. I think I've got the best chance of beating him statewide. And I want the opportunity to go serve Texans in a way that's much more similar to Ted Cruz than it is John Cornyn.
Well, you've got my support. Anything I can do to help you, you call. You're always welcome on this program. You can call me up 2 minutes before, and I'm always going to get you on. So we wish you the best of luck. I hope everybody out there not only votes for you, throw some money in the tip jar, as my friend Larry Elder used to say when he was running for governor in California. But we wish you the best of luck. Texas needs you. Thank you. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. Good to see you, General.
Well, hey, thank you for having me on. And KenPaxton.com, if you want to go donate, it's the best place to go.
Absolutely. That's KenPaxton.com. All right, KenPaxton.com. Literally, he needs help from all over the country. Ratchet in the Rumble channel says they can't vote for him because he doesn't live in Texas, but he could donate. Ratchet, thank you. Ken Paxton's a good man, and he needs to beat Cornyn. When you see what's going on in the Senate sends back $4 billion in cuts for this resolution so we can start working on that big, beautiful bill that Trump wants. Apparently, they got it through. The breaking news is now that has gotten through and they can start working on this where the big battle is. But they want to raise the debt ceiling by $5 trillion. Are you freaking kidding me? Who in the world is running this operation that this is a good idea? I understand President Trump wants it because he wants the leeway to get going. But if Elon is cutting $1 trillion, if the Republicans can be successful to cut $1 trillion, that's a balanced budget right there. We have a deficit of $2 trillion. So why do we need to raise it? I don't want to raise it anymore. I'm done with this. We've got the man we need in office. Let's start cutting and let's start getting America back on track. All right, folks. That's going to do it for us today. Please don't forget about my website, GrantStinchfield.com, GrantStinchfield.com, Stinchfield1776 on all the social media platforms. If you're watching on whatever platform, please hit the like button, share. If you're on Rumble, copy the link and share it on all your social media platforms. That helps as well. Make sure you're subscribed and following me on all of these platforms as well. That's helpful. GrantStinchfield.com is the website. All the podcasts are there for you as well. Please continue to spread the word for me. I'm so grateful. Stinchfield's Army rolls. Thanks to all of you. We'll see you on the Real America's Voice show tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks for watching, everybody.